So I'm Mike Boland. I'm an analyst with BIA Kelsey, and we will get into our panel introductions in just a minute. So today we're talking about programmatic. That's obviously a theme that's very inherent in the data topic of this overall conference, and we hear the term programmatic a lot. eMarketer pegs it as a $10 billion market in the US today, growing to about $20 billion next year, which is projected to be about 63% of the overall US digital display spend. So obviously growing quickly. One of the questions though is, how is that translating at the local level? How is programmatic colliding with all of these topics we talk about at conferences like this? Location-based ad targeting. And the way those things kind of come together bring in lots of other interesting areas like cross-device retargeting and offline attribution and multi-location campaign optimization and all that good stuff. So we have a panel here that's attacking this from many different angles. To start off, why don't I have you guys each introduce yourselves at a high level and your companies for the sake of context, and then we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into what you're all doing. So why don't you go first, Darren?
Hi there, Darren Clark. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for YP. I head up product, business development, and engineering across our product portfolio. 80 million unique visitors. You know, we cover the whole spectrum from search, display, marketing automation products.
Great, thanks, Darren. Andrew?
My name is Andrew Beckman. I'm CEO of Location 3 Media. We are a digital marketing partner. We work with enterprise brands to help them with their local market activations. So as an agency, we help brands with all their paid, earn, and own media strategies and tie that all together with different analytics analysis. And then we have different local solutions. We're one of the pioneers of the local listing management space, and we work with a lot of multi-location businesses. And we also develop different location pages for different franchises where they're able to optimize for the mobile user experience.
Hey, I'm Prioleau.
Turn it on the bottom.
Or maybe Hey, is that an Okay, thank you. The on switch always helpful, I've noticed, being in the technology space. I'm Prioleau. I'm CEO of Simpli.fi. We're a programmatic platform focused on localized campaigns. So what that really means is many of the programmatic platforms are built on national campaigns with sort of pre-built audience segments that are focused at the national level, as opposed to a type of platform that's built around, say, doing $10,000 a day campaigns. We're more focused around doing thousands, $10 a day campaigns and less. And so most of those are by nature local. In the last 30 days, we served ads to 207 million different browser IDs, which is probably not dedupe, but that's just what we see through the programmatic sources.
Thanks, Frost, and I'm glad you brought up that distinction between kind of different levels of local. We all have different connotations when we talk about local. We're going to get into some of those definitions in a second. To start off, though, what I want to do is have each of you guys give a little more color. I think too often panels like this kind of jump into the why, but without kind of first going over the what. And a little more, I think, color on where you each sit in the value chain, what your business models are. Darren, for example, YP wears many hats. I think that's going to help frame all of your respective comments today, if this audience kind of knows, and many of them are familiar with YP. But to reiterate, talk about the kind of the high-level business model.
Sure. I mean, at YP, we focus on everything local, right? And for us, that means it could be a large brand trying to act locally, or it could be a very small business trying to gain consumers in their own communities. So for us, we have large feet on the street sales force, thousands of reps, large inside force, and we really pull together and simplify this. The majority of our business is really helping the truly small business access the same sort of media solutions. The cool thing about that is, with our owned and operated properties, we reach 80 million uniques. And then if you look at our broader reach with the YP ad network through lots of big partners, it's over 100 million unique visitors in a month. And for us, we have really good insight into what I'll call high intent, local life event type stuff. Mm-hmm. So it really gives us a great position. So we really care most about the profile and the end consumer, and then how we get the ad there in terms of what the pipes are and the creative. We partner a lot to get that done.
Nice, and we're going to get into how some of that data empowers you for some of the cross-device stuff you're doing. So we'll get into that. Andrew, kind of whom you serve, where you sit in the value chain, that kind of thing.
So programmatic is has been around for a long time, and I know it's getting more complex in the ecosphere. So programmatic's been around. In my history, I'm thinking probably 1999 when GoTo.com came out with their paid search where you would bid on specific keywords. Now it's very complex. You have different DSPs, you have a number of different targeting criteria, and I think for us, we bring value to our clients where we're assisting them with that, delivering the right message at the right time and helping that, helping them track and measure that consumer's path to purchase and influence that path with different programmatic buying opportunities that are out there. So, it's very difficult for, I think, brands to now adapt to now another different tactic out there, and they need agency help. That this is one of our main focuses moving forward as an agency.
Thanks, and you're right too that the dirty little secret behind the kind of buzzword that is programmatic is that we've been doing this for years in search. Things like real-time bidding, that has its roots in traditional search. So we'll get more into that. Frost.
Right, so we're a platform with programmatic. So what we do, and our customers are typically people who serve SMBs. So we power the programmatic offerings across display, mobile, video, and social media for companies that have local feet on the street. So those could be anywhere from local media companies, newspapers, TV stations, cable companies, or people who just have a set of of offerings for the local advertisers. We also sell directly to brands who have national budgets that they want to localize. So people who are working with franchisees or multi-location companies.
So that gets right into the next question. In the first 5 minutes of this session already, I think the word local has probably been used about 66 times.
It's a good drinking game.
So let's define that, because I think local is a word that has a connotation that's different to different people. Sometimes it can refer to the location of the advertising entity. So that can mean SMB. But also it can mean the targeting scope of the campaign itself, and that can bring in national advertisers that localize campaigns, particularly multi-location advertising. So how are you each seeing local and localization as an opportunity? And there's no right answer because you're all attacking this from different angles. But define that for us.
Sure. I mean, for us, we look at local as help, capturing a user when they're trying to bridge from online to offline, especially. So for us, where you have a user, mobile or online, doing anything and they're expressing local intent that we know is offline, that's what we're really looking for. And for us, location is, it is a notion of targeting, but it's also much more about intent, right? So it's one thing to say you're capturing somebody in a given geofence, and it's another thing when you're talking about going after a specific demographic or a specific thing. So it's really an intersection of the intent as well as the profile of the audience is how we think of location.
And I'm glad you brought up offline as a defining construct, because that's the way I actually see local, in that, if you look at U.S. Census Bureau data, 93% of spending in the U.S. happens offline. After decades of all the attention and investment paid to e-commerce, it's only 7%. And that's mostly retail. If you look at services, close to 100% of those are offline.
Huge opportunity.
But where digital comes in, I mean, that diatribe kind of discounts digital, but digital is increasingly influencing that offline. So that's kind of the...
And those two things are connecting, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing that with a lot of the real-time commerce guys,
yeah.
And so that connection is just going to exist more and more over time.
Exactly. Andrew, your kind of definition of the opportunity, local, location?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously mobile has just redefined that, because everybody's just staring at their phones while they're walking around the streets. I feel like I'm bumping into someone every 2 seconds because they're wavering in my. So, while they're moving around, I mean, they're by retail stores, or we can serve them up that ad, or they're searching on the phone for a specific, whether they want a breakfast sandwich, and we want to be able to show them that right ad. And so it really comes back down to that consumer and where they're located, and just being able to cover all the aspects of paid and the earned, organic, and your own assets. And when you're able to have the right messaging across all those channels, and they're moving around on the phone or they're researching from their desktop, I believe you'll be able to attract that consumer into your store or purchase something within a specific local area.
That's great. So for us, your definition of
Yeah,
local.
I mean, sort of same as Darren. One, it's always got a geo component to it, whether that geo is by an IP-based, where the IP is coming from, or the GPS coordinates off the mobile phone, or beacon coming up. But also it's about customizing audiences to local tastes. So, you know, that we have a sandwich shop that's a customer of ours, and hey, there's hoagies and Subways and grinders and who knows how many terms. Or example I use is often is you know, think about a Toyota dealer in Palo Alto, California. We've got a lot full of Priuses, a bunch of people who care about fuel economy. I live in Fort Worth, Texas. Not too many Priuses on the road, some growing number, but I mean, it's a lot full of Tundras, and they're looking for people looking at towing capacity. So totally different audience for a Toyota dealer in Palo Alto versus a Toyota dealer in Fort Worth, Texas. And so you don't want to use sort of a cookie cutter audience for both of those. So it's about localizing those audiences.
Now, staying with that example, let's bring programmatic into the discussion. So we've defined local. One of the premises I made in the intro comments was, you know, the unofficial tagline I have for this session is the collision or the intersection of local and programmatic. So we've defined and talked about local. Now let's talk about programmatic. For us, Simpli.fi is a business that really, you know, programmatic is core to what you do. Tell me where you're seeing the programmatic opportunity kind of come together with local. And you just really alluded to kind of, you know, using different variances in keyword searches in different areas and intent in different areas as a foundation for building programmatic strategies. Go a little bit deeper with that and defining kind of programmatic.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the big things that programmatic, and I'm talking about, I guess, real-time bidding programmatic, as opposed to, of course, there's programmatic search,
Yep.
so to limit it to that. I mean, one of the things that it's really done is brought a large pool of inventory together. In the past, you'd have to go to various different publishers to get access to inventory, and so it was very hard to sort of put together a pool of a local audience that was targeted well enough. So now, with all the exchange-traded inventory available, a buyer is able to really cherry pick and say, hey, I'm looking for just Toyota buyers within Palo Alto, Menlo Park, San Mateo, what have you, and really is able to increase the ability to cherry pick. And so in the end of the day, we actually have a ton of inventory to choose from when looking at a say search, you know, users who've searched on specific terms within a geo. A lot of our optimization algorithms are saying, hey, we only want to bid on the top 20% of the inventory because there's that much inventory available. So and so that's, I mean, to me, one of the biggest things it's brought is the ability for even localized advertisers to be picky and to cherry pick and to target very well in their audience.
That makes sense. Darren, recently you guys launched YP Search Marketplace, which has some programmatic aspects to it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about GoTo.com and the invention of paid search back in the late 90s. I was actually there. GoTo Overture onto Yahoo. And so what we've done at YP is we've essentially brought in a whole new inventory and yield management capability underneath all of that inventory. So what that's done for us is it's allowing us to do a better job of pricing it. It's allowing us to do a better job of getting the yield we want. But most importantly, it's allowed us to put all these pipes together so that all of the data, whether it's coming through on our display products, or whether it's coming through on landing pages for websites we sell, or whether it's things coming through the search campaigns, that's all now being integrated into one place. Nice. And as we bring more buyers and more demand against that inventory, we think that'll also give us more insight about kind of geographies, categories, and the value around that.
And YP is a company, I believe, is uniquely positioned to that in having unique data sets, in having a direct consumer product, in addition to the things you mentioned earlier and the other legs of the stool, such as your ad network and a sales channel. But the owned and operated properties positions you very nicely to have that rich data set.
Absolutely. I mean, people, you know, you think about where people spend their time doing certain things, and for us, it's our users are very episodic and life event oriented. So think about someone doing a remodel, think about somebody trying to cater an event.
Big ticket items.
Big ticket, longer consideration items, and so we think that's a great sweet spot for us as we go deeper into programmatic, because we think we're going to have not the biggest base of profiles, but we think some of the richest set of profiles around user intent. Interesting.
And that leads into some of the cross-device retargeting I want to get into in a bit. But first, Andrew, your kind of definition of where local meets programmatic and what that means for you and how you're chasing that. You alluded to a lot of that already, but.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, with you know, a lot of opportunities, I think, you know, where we're talking about the geofencing and we're able to target those consumers in those areas. So I'm going to bring it back to search, and you know, we're able to not only define the area, but there's these non-branded queries that are being introduced, and 20% are new each day. That's what's quoting from Google a couple years ago. Where so you have new queries coming. You can geofence the consumer area, and I believe that is just an untapped area in programmatic buying right now, because I'm like, okay, I want to bid on this. I want to bid higher.
Yeah.
Here's my user in this specific area, and I want to reach them, whether they're using YP or Google or Bing, to query. And I think that's just and when I speak to a lot of brands, I just don't sense they're using that area. I know they're doing a lot of, obviously, search and target, but really getting deep down and trying to predict what are the potential queries, because you really have so much historical data that you can use, and you can make certain guesses. And it's it's always with digital marketing, I'm going to test, measure, and see what works. And so that's where I think the area is.
Well, what you're talking about also brings location into a broader opportunity, not just using geo-targeting as a ad targeting tool, but as an audience profiling tool. So not just where I am right now, but what were the last 20 places I've been, and what does that say about me as a user profile that can then be used not just where I am at any given time, but really to reach me at any time, because the advertiser or the network now knows the type of profile that I am. So on that note, are you guys doing anything with kind of audience profiling and bring that into the programmatic discussion?
Absolutely. I mean, we've made some acquisitions in this area, and we really see, kind of back to what I said previously, the core of it for us is about amassing, creating our own DMP and amassing these rich profiles. But beyond that, we're really trying to figure out how do we get deeper into these other pieces that are really important, automate things around, the creative, the user, the other pieces around that. And with TapAd, we have this piece where we're doing cross-device targeting with them. They have really interesting capabilities around kind of fingerprinting across devices and really getting down to location and device, and even the nuances between what people are doing on those two devices. And so we're not sharing any of the data behind that today, but we've had some really interesting success stories with very large brands, seeing levels of conversion they haven't seen before.
That makes sense. Go ahead, Frost.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the use case that we see on that side is auto dealers, and probably all have a lot of auto dealers. But so an auto dealer in go back to in Dallas-Fort Worth, the ability to target everyone who's been on an auto dealer's location in the last week, right? So this is physical retargeting of users based on GPS or beacon signals, probably more GPS signals today, but that sort of profile, or target everyone who's been through Denver Airport in the last 2 days, right? So that's probably an audience that's some travel, like hotel, who are advertisers, may be very interesting in getting back. So those are some of the sort of profiles we see that are overlaying location data.
And I find it refreshing to have auto as an example and not plumbing, because plumbers always seem to be the go-to example. And if the amount of times plumbing is used as an example, if plumbers are being called that often, I hope that there's probably another local search that needs to be done, which is moving trucks with all the the plumbing going on. At least if
I actually have a good plumber example, but I'll hold off.
We'd love to hear it. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, no, we use a lot of, some of the programs we're using is a lot of our clients' data sets, and then we're trying to match that up with the audience targeting, and then we use geo additionally. And so you could do, it's just testing different segments. So, we work with a credit card company, and they're trying to get people to use a credit card in gas stations. So we've matched out all the different areas where we know that there's gas stations, and we're targeting, and when the consumer hits that area, boom, we can hit them up with the ad.
Nice. So Darren, I want to kind of expand on what you mentioned with the cross-device theme. So local, of course, is central to all of this, and mobile is always used in the same breath as local. So mobile has really, I see it as a double-edged sword. The rich data and signals coming from the mobile device really enable a lot of the programmatic stuff we're talking about today, but also it brings up the challenge in having to kind of contend with that cross-device attribution. You mentioned TapAd, what you're doing with retargeting. I'd like to hear from each of you guys about the kind of state of the art in cross-device retargeting. Without getting too nuts and bolts into methodology. Where are you seeing the opportunities and the challenges in cross-device? And that brings up, I guess, two subtopics. One which is attribution, and the other one is retargeting. They're both very much related.
I think the thing for us is what we've noticed as we've been getting into this with TapAd and with our prior efforts with display and programmatic is you really start to see a picture of people making decisions over a longer period of time when you can see them across multiple devices. And we see this with our own registered users as you see them going from a desktop back to a mobile device. And so when you think about being able to go to media buyers and people who are putting these campaigns together, you're really giving them a sniper's rifle almost in terms of being able to find people where your level of confidence about them being in a given consideration cycle way higher than just some of the location signals of where somebody's been and possibly a keyword at a point in time. So when you can stitch this together over a series of days and some of these consideration cycles over weeks, the rate of action we're seeing from users when you can identify them and put the right creative against it is
that makes sense.
Just different than what you would see with kind of normal geo-targeted, demographic-targeted display.
Frost, you've drawn the distinction before about attribution and cross-device attribution and the need to look at the entire funnel, where the state of the art has traditionally been last click attribution or last. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it's just, and there's a lot of pieces to be connected here still, I would say. But what we're starting to see is the ability with mobile to drive offline attribution. So the ability to say show an ad to a set, and then by using either beacons or GPS targeting, depending on the size of the venue, be able to see what percentage of those who saw an ad what the likelihood was them of actually showing up in the store. So the ability to do attribution based on actual physical presence is something that we see that bringing. That's still, and that you see that with Google, is I think Google's starting to look at some in-store conversion data and that sort of thing. And so there's a lot, I would say it's not very common, especially amongst the local advertisers that we see, but some of the more sophisticated, larger retail advertisers would probably be the first ones going down that path.
Andrew?
Yeah, a lot of the opportunity across device is, okay, I'm looking for a breakfast sandwich, and or I'm by a specific retail store, and then I'm logged in to Google or Facebook, and then later on I'm seeing on my desktop ads to come back and take $1 off that breakfast sandwich. That cross-device tracking and delivering is powerful. Actually tracking attribution you'll never get that 100%. It's just too many touch points that these consumers are seeing nowadays, whether it's on the paid side, they're seeing ads, I'm reading a specific article that's helping me to that path as a consumer to purchase something. It'll never be 100%, but you can make good positive judgments on which touch points actually influence that consumer to go further. And just, when Google about a year and a half ago came up with that estimated conversion metrics, where they know when you're logged into YouTube, Gmail, and their platform, they can see what your path is and converting. But once you jump out, that's the problem. But who's going to? So we talk about this as a future opportunity. I mean, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon. I mean, they're going to hold the keys. They're going to hold the keys because they know who I am and what I want, and then they'll give us the ability to serve that ad in a programmatic fashion. But we're going to have to all pay a premium price, I feel, to reach Andrew Beckman, who wants to buy a book at this moment, because they know me, they know who I am.
One of the most brilliant and underrated things that Facebook has done, in my opinion, is Facebook Connect. And as an authentication tool, that's been the underpinnings for the Facebook Audience Network, and being signed into their network or affiliate networks at any given time really gets to what you're talking about in, the need for some of this cross-device stuff is mitigated when you're signed in and authenticated with a given network, so they know who you are. So that's great, but that kind of puts a lot of power within the hands of those few networks.
I guess if they all said, hey, let's all agree that this is the ID we're going to all track, maybe we can get to that, or attribution. Maybe if they all agreed, but I know it's not going to happen. But
So along the same lines, it seems like some of the methodology for the attribution and the retargeting is largely extrapolated and getting very accurate. You're right, no, we'll never get 100%. It's getting accurate with things like what TapAd's doing, or TapAd, excuse me, I pronounced it wrong. But the holy grail to that could be mobile payments and beacons and offline transactions to close the loop. That still requires somewhat of a kind of attribution connection. So in the meantime, it seems like there are some kind of lower hanging fruit in starting to innovate ad units themselves to have calls to action that drive things like a phone call to certain types of businesses that want phone calls, or directions to retail establishments that want foot traffic. What are you each doing in terms of, not just where the ad shows up, but what it contains with those proper calls to action that start to drive and track those desired actions?
Sure. I mean, for us, phone calls have always been a big deal because we're so many service categories.
Yeah, totally.
Or think of insurance.
Plumbers.
Well, plumbers, but even you think of like insurance and legal is also a big category for us, and so the moment of truth for those guys when they're acquiring a customer is the phone call.
Yep.
Right. Whereas with retail and location businesses, it's some mix of an offer and nearest location.
Sure.
But it really does come down to those three things: is you're either physically trying to drive someone to a location nearby. We really push our customers, put an offer there, some incentive. And then on the other side, it's about right now you can kind of get a step closer to what you're trying to do, whether that's insurance, legal, or more of a call-driven category. I do think it's going to be interesting as you get, more coverage at the bottom of the funnel, whether that's through payments, whether that's through these marketplace guys, and that's where you're going to get more visibility. But the whole attribution thing, the problem is that you have to know when it started, and you have to know when it ended. And so we talk a lot about the bottom of the funnel, but the hardest part is knowing when someone's entering into consideration for a given product or service.
That makes sense. And with calls, you see other verticals like telecom where, it's a call center driven thing where they're signing 2-year service contracts upwards of $2,000. So the value of those leads can be pretty high in certain situations.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
We also do on the location-based side. Obviously, call is a huge metric. I mean, that's what is occurring right now when the consumer's on the move. I mean, we do see high click-through rates in a lot of ways, but is it their thumb like clicking on the ad and like now we have kind of misleading metrics there. I want the audience to think about not just the creative piece that you want to have messaging, but like different strategies. I mean, we gave an idea would be like an example is like we gave strategies to a luxury hotel in Las Vegas, and they were really struggling on these broad words like Las Vegas hotels, and we said, hey, why don't you go after the high worth, because they're a luxury brand, high worth. So we took the top 150 postal codes of the high net worth, and we kind of just carved out these little niche areas, and we just served up these geo-modified phrases, the non-branded terms, and it was so powerful, worked like gangbusters. So I want everybody to think about, okay, the creative that we're going to serve up definitely needs to be attractive and gets me to want to click and go further. But there's so many tools out there in programmatic, but how you adopt it and the strategies you put behind it is really the main crux of this whole equation, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we see those geo overlays working really well, based with some other demos. But back to your point, Mike, the shortest distance you can put between the engagement, the ad, and the action, whatever that is, and whether that's signing up for an appointment, right online, or a call, or what have you, right within the ad even, or what have you, just drives better conversions always.
And programmatic also comes into that when, we've seen display ads that have a dynamic distance feed. The closest target is 2 miles away, or it's 3 miles away, depending on where I'm standing, or even, the mapping capabilities in unit. It starts to get pretty interesting. So we have about 2 minutes on this clock. I have the banner over here saying only 1 minute. So to close off here, I want to talk about, the buy side of the equation. What's the level of adoptiveness from advertisers? Because you guys are each dealing with different sizes and verticals. And in some cases franchises, which gets into, is it done at the corporate level, or is it done at the decentralized franchisee level? And then with the SMB question, it seems like programmatic is tailor-made to advertisers that are time-strapped in its automation and other benefits. Buy side adoptiveness, and what are you doing to educate them there?
Sure. For us, it's a tale of two customers, because we do call on large national brands as well as small businesses. At the small business level, where you're talking about running tens of thousands of campaigns, it's really about scale, efficiency, and it kind of, it has to be within certain boundaries of cost and performance. At the national side, it's especially with some of the more emerging stuff, it's a bunch of science projects, right? And we always talk about the media buyer. And so when we're thinking of new products and new solutions, it's like, okay, how much is the media buyer going to have to do something different? Yeah. Because a lot of times the product and the engineering guys aren't thinking about who the real user is. Right. The real user in the middle is the media buyer. And if you don't have something that that works and that they can understand, you just have to be ready for a longer process and more back and forth. I think the franchise piece is a really compelling opportunity, because that's where I think they're looking for differential performance.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and trying to make sense of their co-op budgets and things like that. So we're really focused on all three of those. But it really is, at the national end for us, it's a lot of experimentation and what's new and what's great. And at the bottom end, it's about scale, efficiency,
Sure.
and performance.
And this theme I see there too is lessening the points of friction.
Absolutely.
Andrew?
You know, you know, the brands that we work with are being more interested in programmatic buying. There's obviously a lot of questions around the space, and you know, we're just trying to educate them on always, again, let's just test and measure these different channels, and so you know, can we take your CRM data and try to use that? So that's like the first step we try to do, you know, just to serve up these ads without kind of just you know, free-nearly we haven't really seen great performance there. So it's really a challenge. And just to that point, that's on the display side. Most of the brands that we work with, even on the franchise side, they're not even maximizing the search. So we have a lot of work there to do before we start pushing them into spending more stuff on display media, on the programmatic
You're
side.
helping them walk before they can run.
Yeah, there's still a lot of walking. Even the large brands, I don't want to get it wrong. I took a pretty Fortune 500 brands. I mean, they're still not doing like those geofence, keyword targeting, non-branded stuff we were talking about earlier.
Frost, last words.
Yeah, broad range. But I think the whole industry, I think we'd all probably agree that everyone's looking for more ROI. I mean, there's been CTR-based metrics in the past, and I think we see everyone saying, hey, really, what's my ROI? What's my cost per action, whether that action's a purchase, lead sign up, or whatever.
Yeah.
So finding ways to do that in local can be tough.
And a theme I hear there is a lot of education for advertisers. So hopefully these gentlemen have educated you. Join me in thanking them.